Hunters, thank you for joining us. I'm Joy.
And I'm Laura.
And this is The Witches of Letters, a supernatural rewatch podcast.
Buckle up as we dive into Season 2, Episode 8, Crossroad Blues.
How do you feel about this episode?
I thought it was interesting. I liked how they build up they're building up the demon lore still with the show.
Yeah.
I'm liking that. Although I have a bit of a thing about the demon eyes, but I'll come to that later when we get to them.
I was going to ask you because there's always stuff with us. I was like, she 100% is going to have something to say about this. Was this like a flag-heavy episode for you?
I don't feel like I've got as many flags as usual. It wasn't flags, it was just like things I'm noticing.
Okay. I don't think that I have like a ton, but there were definitely a couple of things in certain scenes where I was just like, wait, what? What?
Yeah.
Why? How? I won't say exactly what I thought yet because I want to say it in the episode proper. But I kind of felt like we got some Undine Dean lines again this time around.
Uh-huh.
And I'm starting to be like suspicious of Sarah Gamble because this is another Sarah Gamble episode. And I feel like there's a trend here. And I just want to know why she's putting these words in Dean's mouth. Because nope. Okay, rejected.
I feel like I had a rant somewhere in my notes about Dean this episode. I wrote them a couple of days ago, so I can't remember.
Checks out.
I feel like I had a rant about him.
This is why I do all my stuff lastminute.com the day of. Because that's the only way that I can keep things straight in my head. As it is, I'm struggling a little bit. Because I read so much information for this episode for the Easter eggs that I feel like my brain is chicken noodle soup right now. Good luck to me. Good luck to all of us. It's really best. But there's so much information on this topic. And then so much of it is conflicting. It's literally a minefield. Like, it's actually a minefield. So yeah, once again,
making
good luck.
Deals with the devil stuff.
Yeah. So it's the history of Robert Johnson, the original Delta Blues group of people who are foundational in music, and what is or isn't true. Obviously, the show does tend to pick from different elements of American folklore, and they clearly decided that a musician who sells his soul to the devil at the crossroads to be great is an awesome concept for a story because it is very evocative folklore. But then you have like the complication that this is based on a real person who lived in a really, like, America's never been great to be Black, but like a really bad time to be Black in America. His life was so complicated. These musicians got messed around by record labels really bad. Like, they got really screwed over, several of them. So there's just all these like ins and outs, and you want to be making sure that you're getting the best information and that you're not accidentally being misled, because there's also lots of misinformation. So I'm soup. I'm soup in human form. Yeah.
I didn't like hearing the descriptions of what John's going through.
Yeah, that's not great.
No, I did not like that bit. Could have done without that.
No. Yeah. As emotional / psychological horror, that scene is really excellent. There's also parts of it that like make me raise my eyebrows a little bit, like the CGI dog claw marks.
Oh yeah. Oh, I had a flag about that. I definitely had a flag about that.
Thank you. It's upsetting to me. It's deeply upsetting to me because it's so cheesy. I just feel like if you're gonna do demon claw marks and you're trying to make them menacing, that's not the way to go. And it just like it's I feel like it detracts from it being scary instead of making it scary. So
yeah, they didn't look very realistic as scratches at all.
No, it's so silly. It looks like pencil shavings.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely had a flag about that. So maybe I have got flags.
Hallelujah.
I know I said I didn't have any flags, but yeah, that's probably a lie.
Yeah, so it's just if I watch it as just a viewer and I'm not analyzing it for the podcast and I'm not like thinking too hard about it as an episode, then I like it. And it's
Yeah.
cool that they're recognizing the real roots of American rock. That's nice. Um, it's cool that they're delving into true deep roots American folklore because that is American folklore. Folklore is something that is alive. It is something that tends to have real documented things mixed in with things that are, impossible to prove. Um, there are great jump scares. There are really cool moments in
Yeah.
this episode where the jump scares are hardcore. But then when I start analyzing it and researching it and breaking it down and my film degree comes to life, I feel like it's made me not enjoy it anymore. I don't know if that's true. But like I feel like I got so many flags for me that I just went, oh, I don't know. It feels like bugs. Like it feels like bugs to me now.
Oh, see, I definitely
Uh
liked it more than that. I definitely haven't got that many
yeah.
flags.
Yeah. That's good. Hopefully as we go in, it'll be a good time. So my preamble notes for you, Laura, are that what's interesting is when it opens in Greenwood, Mississippi. It says Greenwood, Mississippi, August 1938. And that's interesting because that's when the real Robert Johnson died. Um
Uh-huh.
Also no one knows because there's no agreement on the cause of death and there's arguably not really an investigation or an autopsy. It's like they basically looked at him and wrote down, yeah, he seems dead to me. And that's like it. He
Oh.
doesn't really have like a birth certificate. He arguably doesn't have a death certificate. I say that because there's one researcher who says that she recovered a death certificate, but it's kind of debated whether it's real or not. So, like, there's all this mystery around his death, which is part of the myth building of Robert Johnson. There's so little known about him that it makes the actual spinning of the tale so much more believable because you can't prove or disprove anything about him. Like, there's so many conflicting resources, even in his contemporaries, like people who actually knew him or played with him. And it's like impossible. It's impossible to figure out what's real and what's not real with him.
Yeah. It makes me think, would it have been a better episode if they hadn't based it on a real person, like someone similar? Like it could be loosely based on him, but not actually saying it's him, maybe. But then I suppose with the whole, they wanted it to be like the first time someone had done the deal.
Yeah. So
So I don't know.
from the point of view of it being a cool concept for an episode and knowing how much they like folklore, like I understand why they based it on Robert Johnson. I feel like it would have been better if they put together an archetype because he's not the only blues musician of this era who had that claim. There are actually other
Yeah,
people who
that's
made
what I
the same
mean.
claim, right?
Yeah.
So like it would have been better in my opinion if they created a fictional amalgamation of different elements of these guys' different stories and sort of done their own thing. I think the reason why it gets complicated for me as an episode is because they've used a real person and he has like descendants that are alive now. Like there's like real people attached to the story.
Yeah.
So it's just in my opinion it feels a little bit messy.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah.
Should I do the synopsis?
Yes, please.
So this is season 2, episode 8, Crossroad Blues. The original air date for this episode was November 16th, 2006. Sam and Dean investigate the cases of very successful people seeing black dogs before their untimely deaths. This leads them to a bar at a crossroads where deals with demons seem to have been happening for decades. It seems that 10 years after the deals go down, the demons come to collect, and that's what's happening now. They find a man named Evan who made one of these deals who hasn't been killed yet, and they try to help him. Dean summons the demon himself and traps it so he can bargain for Evan's life in exchange for its freedom. This works, but during this exchange, the demon tells Dean what we as the audience already know, that his dad made a similar deal to save Dean's life, and now he's being tortured for eternity in hell.
Dun, dun, dun.
Poor John.
Yeah, it's not ideal for John Winchester. It's just such a dark ending to the episode.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's
And
another
poor
reason
Dean.
why I have a problem with it. Like, in terms, like, it's just there's so much drama and there's so little humor, and the lines that are supposed to be humorous are really questionable. It hurts me in my soul, Laura. This might be my Phantom Traveler.
I thought we already had that. Oh, that was me. What was the one I didn't like?
That was you. You didn't like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. That was your Phantom Traveler. I feel like this is my Phantom Traveler episode. Yeah, the zombies where you're like, she's not enough of a zombie.
Yeah, she wasn't a very good zombie. So in the opening scene, we see a blues musician, who is Robert Johnson, playing guitar in a bar. We hear howls outside and he stops playing. And we then see creepy shadows moving past the window as something circles the bar outside. We also hear barking and more growls. And then he runs out of the bar and down the road. And we see there's a dog following him, snarling. And he runs into a building and locks the door. And then something bangs up against the door and we hear barking again. Oh, and in the bar, it was as if no one else could see or hear the dogs. It was only him that could hear it because everyone else was like, what's he stopping
everyone
for?
else was confused.
Yeah.
And I thought that part was pretty good because their confusion adds to the scary side of the episode. I also thought the giant black dogs circling outside was pretty scary too. I thought that was actually decent. I was like, whoa, this is creepy. So it was a really creepy opening scene. And it was made creepier because I was like, I know this name. What is this name? And then I looked him up and I was like, I know you. Because he's so famous. So my first mini Easter egg is that Robert Johnson is actually the story that most people associate with the idea that musicians sell their soul to the devil to get great. So his story is the most popular variant of that piece of folklore. And I found some kind of articles summarized about it. And they say very little was known of his life outside of the small musical circuit in the Mississippi Delta where he spent most of his time. Much of his story has been reconstructed by researchers. Johnson's poorly documented life and death have given rise to legends. The one most often associated with him is that he sold his soul to the devil at a local crossroads in return for musical success. But friends of Johnson have given conflicting testimonies as to whether the singer himself ever endorsed the tale. And the two of his songs that are most often associated with the story, Crossroad Blues and Hell Hell Know My Trail, make no mention of an unholy encounter. Historians now suggest that Johnson's real benefactor may have been a guitarist in the Hazelhurst area named Ike Zinnerman, which is sometimes spelled as Zimmerman. He was one of the kind of contemporary founding blues members as well. And as Johnson's music began to find an audience in the years after his death, critics, many of them white and mystified by Black culture in the South, leaned into the legend.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely heard of the story and of him before. I used to listen to a lot of blues music. Like, I went through a phase when I was at uni.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've definitely heard of him and the story being like linked to him originally.
Yeah. And it's wild to me that white people were like, oh, these people play guitars so awesome. That can't possibly be true because this time period is like racism exists always, right? But this time period is like blatantly overt racism, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a musical historian named Elijah Wald, and he wrote this book called Escaping the Delta, Robert Johnson and the Invention of the Blues. And he's quoted as saying, as white urbanites discovered the race records, quote, of the 1920s and 1930s, they reshaped the music to fit their own tastes and desires, creating a rich mythology that often bears little resemblance to the reality of the musicians that they admired.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, I think that it's so fucked up, honestly. It's just like this denial of someone else, someone different from you being better than you at something. That's what it feels like. Because there is also the resurfacing of the information that the origins of rock and roll are African American, isn't there? Like it happened, there was this huge academic explosion of information. And I think for me, at least the 2000s, I remember this coming up because I had some friends doing a music degree at the same time that I was doing a film degree. And so while I was learning about like black exploitation and the ways that in film and TV, black folks like beliefs and cultures had been exploited pretty heavily, especially in the like pre 70s and then up into the 70s when you get black exploitation films. They're learning about how American music and rock and roll in particular, where we've been told that it was created by white musicians like Elvis and Buddy Holly, that really its roots are like Black American music and particularly blues. And I just like it's just wild. It's just like the way that this erasure has rolled over this huge piece of history boggles my mind.
Yeah. So he's run into this building and these dogs are like banging against the door, and then he puts a chair under the door handle and falls to his knees facing the door, and it's kind of like he's accepting his fate and kind of praying. And then the door opens and 3 people from the bar come in instead of what we're expecting it to be a dog. And then he's kind of convulsing on the floor, and the woman who comes in shouts for someone to get a doctor and then is telling Robert not to die on her. And he just says that he saw black dogs and then he dies. So it's linked to one of the stories of his death.
Yeah, there's multiple versions of his death. So
Yeah.
where I had said before that there's arguably a death certificate, but even that isn't certain, and that one of his contemporaries claimed that he'd been poisoned by a jealous husband. There's multiple different stories, and one of them is that he was killed by hellhounds. And I know that some of his death has been attributed to a deal with the devil by allegedly from a source that I read on Wikipedia. So, that one of the women that he'd married, one of his wives, had passed away, and her family claimed that the tragedies and things that were happening to him was because he had written music about the devil, that the devil was able to punish him or like bad things were befalling him because of the kind of secular music that he was putting out there.
Okay.
So there's just so many rumors, mysteries, and intrigue surrounding him that it's impossible to narrow down what's real and what's like a story.
Yeah.
So they're in a diner during the day, and Sam and Dean are sitting at a table, and Sam has his laptop open, and then on screen there's a mugshot of Dean from the St. Louis Police Department. And Sam says, "So much for a low profile. You've got a warrant in St. Louis, and now you're officially in the Fed's database." And Dean's smiling, and he says, "Dude, I'm like Dillinger or something." So for reference to why that's such witty banter, John Herbert Dillinger was an American gangster during the Great Depression. He was accused of robbing 24 banks and 4 police stations. How does one rob a police station? First of all, okay.
What's there to rob? Like from the stuff that they've been taken off
I
people?
think.
Yeah.
Like, I assume they had like cash, jewels, and stuff that was like evidence, and he must, I don't know. Or he's like, "Give me all your money, cops." Haha. I don't know. But the 4 police stations, like the fact that he just kept getting them and kept it, that's hilarious. Police have
Yeah.
one job, to catch robbers. And he robbed them 4 times. On top of that, he was imprisoned like a few times, but he escaped twice at least. Okay? So Dean making this reference where he's like getting in and out of like police custody and just like ducking and weaving and outwitting and charming his way out of being arrested. This is a peak Dean reference. This is great. So I love that line. Sam, meanwhile, is like, Dean, it's not funny. It makes the job harder. We've got to be so much more careful now. And Dean's like, well, what have they got on you? And Sam kind of mutters, and then he goes, I'm sure they just haven't posted it yet. You just go, oh my God. I was laughing out loud, honestly, at this point. This is probably my favorite scene in this episode.
Yeah.
Dean goes, no accessory, nothing. And Sam goes, shut up. And Dean starts laughing at him in his face and says, you're jealous? And Sam goes, no, I'm not. But he says it in a tone where it's like, oh, Sam. Oh, no, you are totally jealous. It's amazing. So Dean goes, all right. What do you got on the case there, you innocent, harmless young man, you? Which I also love. So good.
But I did write, though, in my notes, I wrote, now, boys, it's not big or clever to have a warrant out for your arrest, and this isn't the dick measuring contest you think it is.
Again, we are totally polar opposites. I'm just like punk rock, defeating the police. Amazing. Because I love Dean's war with the cops. It's so funny to me.
Yeah,
it provides me with so much entertainment. So the Dean being impressed with himself at outwitting different police stations is amazing. So Sam doesn't quite slam the computer shut, but he is annoyed. Okay, and we're concerned for the well-being of this laptop. And he pulls out all these pages of research, and he says architect Sean Boyden plummeted to his death from the roof of his home, a condominium he designed. And then Dean has an unsavory line where he says, built a high rise and jump off the top of it. That's classy. When did he call animal control? And I don't like that at all. Again, this is one of those lines where it's just it does not feel like a Dean line to me. I object. So Sam says that it was 2 days earlier, and Dean says, did he actually say black dog? And Sam says, yeah, a vicious wild black dog. The authorities couldn't find it and no one else saw it. In fact, the authorities are a little confused as to how a wild dog could just get past the doorman, take the elevator up. Sorry, this is a really amusing image. Take the elevator up and start roaming the halls of the cushiest joint in town. After that, no more calls. He doesn't show up for work. 2 days later, he takes a swan dive. And Dean says, do you think we're dealing with an actual black dog?
So Dean asks about the law of black dogs, and Sam says it's pretty vague, really, because it ranges from animal spirits to death omens. And then Dean makes a stupid joke about humping legs, and Sam looks less than impressed, and my face probably looked the same.
Yeah, I literally wrote down eye roll. Yeah. That's my note on that line.
But now I've got a little treat for you, Joy. I've taken some of your Easter egg. I think now would be a good time to share a little bit of black dog lore with you from where I live. Because
tell me everything.
I live in Norfolk, and we have some black dog lore around here that's kind of cool, so I thought I'd share it. So we have what's known as black shuck, which is basically a big black dog with red eyes that has been sighted in various places and is usually described as being an omen of death or a hellhound of sorts. I think there's black shucks elsewhere in the world as well, but I'm not as familiar with those. And I don't know if they're described the same way, so I'm just going to stick with the Norfolk version. So on Wikipedia, it says that according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the name shuck derives from the Old English word shucker, which means devil or fiend. So that's probably where that name comes from.
That's a fun word to say.
So I also found an article that I want to read a bit from, and it's called The Black Shuck and the Black Dogs of Norfolk, and it was written by Max Derbyshire in June of 2023, June 14th, 2023. And I'll link this in the show notes. So it says, you can't look into Norfolk folklore without hearing about the famous demon dog of East Anglia, commonly known as Black Shuck. Described as a huge black dog with burning eyes that haunts the Norfolk coast. There are actually several variations of this intriguing giant hound, and they can vary from town to town. So basically, it's either seen as a protector or a guardian of the coast. That's some of the story and lore around it. Or it's an omen of death.
I love that. Diversity. Are you a good doggy or are you a doom doggy?
I remember the doom doggy version from when I was little. So I just remember hearing that side of it, and it also fits better with this episode. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what people often experience and then a shortened version of what's considered the origin story. So this is all still from the same article. So it says, usually the stories of sightings of the Shuck are quite similar in their telling. A lone person, sometimes on horseback or in more modern accounts on a motorbike or bicycle, is travelling through rural Norfolk, often across sea cliffs or coastal roads. The land around them is quiet and empty, a cold wind blowing across the crops and tree tops. Suddenly, the wind drops and the protagonist finds themselves feeling as though they are not alone. As they look over their shoulder, they are horrified to find an enormous dog, as big as a large calf, padding silently behind them, often described as keeping pace and a wicked glint in its fiery eyes. Some describe lashing out at the dog, rude, either by throwing
Yeah, that's
something.
terrible behavior. Why
Yeah,
would you? Also, if you had a dog like the size of a pony or a bear, why would you make the first move of aggression? What is wrong
no.
with you? That's so dumb. I would just be like, nice doggy, good doggy, we'll be friends. Yeah.
I'd just run away, I think.
I'd be throwing a stick, trying to
A big
distract him.
stick.
Just be like, woo, a stick. I saw a rabbit and we went that way. He runs in the other direction.
Some describe lashing out at the dog, either by throwing something or aiming with a forceful kick, but these attacks just seem to pass through the creature, so it's a ghost dog. As soon as the person comes to the realization that they are at the hound's mercy, it disappears. Often this is followed by a death in the family of the individual. The shock is often seen as a portent of death. So that's like what often happens if people see it. And the story I'm going to tell now is considered the origin story. So it's called The Black Shuck of Bungay. And this is still from the same article. So the most famous story involving the Shuck took place just over the border in Suffolk at a church in Bungay on August 4th, 1577. The church was filled with parishioners in prayer. Outside, a vicious storm howled, battering the doors and windows violently and making the entire church appear as though it were shaking, which I thought linked to this episode quite well because it was like the doors were shaking a lot.
Yeah, see that and the wind.
Uh-huh.
I had a flag about the wind that happens in one of the scenes where it's like blowing away the dust
Oh, the
stuff, the
circle.
protective dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, this seems dumb. Why do they suddenly have wind powers? But now that I'm hearing the folklore, I'm like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah. So the terrified people offered up prayer for their God to save them, but it was not God who answered. With an almighty bang, the church doors were thrown wide open, causing the roar of the wind and rain to increase as it found its way inside. There in the doorway, its black fur matted from the rain, eyes burning like red-hot coals in the night, stood the black shuck. With a chilling growl, it charged into the church, bounding between the terrified onlookers. It moved among the people with great speed, taking two of them around the head with its jaws and breaking their necks with ease.
Oh.
It bit another in the back, and he seemed to shrivel and turn back, like leather thrown on a fierce fire. Before anyone had time to react, the beast was gone as quickly as it had appeared. It is reported that Shuck then made his way to a church in Blythburgh, where a similar thing happened, the only evidence of its rampage being the large scorch marks in the door it had burst through. These marks can still be seen on the church door today. And that's true. There is a church that has marks on the door, and the town also holds a Black Shuck festival every year.
I want to go. Add it to the
I want
road
to go
trip.
to. I've never actually been. I want to go. I might go next year. So that's a little bit of black dog lore from my neck of the woods that I wanted to share because I feel like it does fit well with this episode.
It actually does. So before I knew that Laura was going to take the Easter egg, which makes sense because it's her heritage, I did a tiny bit of research and she was like, hey, I'm going to do Black Shuck. And I was like, of course, that makes sense. So I can tell you from what I read that the original sources are medieval texts, and they agree that Black Shuck is the actual origin story for all black dogs, definitely from this side of the
Yay.
world. So for our little area over here, like European stuff, Black Shuck is the OG. And then you do have other dogs and other cultures which are very similar to Black Shuck. I can tell you that in America we have something we call run-alogs, which are giant black dogs with burning eyes that are considered to sometimes be omens. It's something that a lot of people have described. And I think actually it's Tumblr that started calling them run-alongs. Like a whole bunch of people on spooky threads were posting about this experience that was like a shared experience across America. So I think that was really interesting for me, like reading that and then putting that together with this episode is fascinating. There are interesting things in other pieces of lore, like you have Hecate and hellhounds, and how that's quite different from what a lot of people think. So there's different pagan origins for hellhounds or for sacred dogs. You have like the Church Grimm, which is kind of similar but not the same. So I love this groupings of like mythical dog mythos. It's something that I really, really enjoy. And
I like it too.
I love the fact that the medieval source that Laura's talking about, like one of the accounts for the church stores being burned, so old and so well documented. Like there's so many historic reliable sources for that incident. And those things are things that I absolutely love, because it's like you have multiple witnesses. It's written down. I think that story is written down by a monk. So like people that we would consider to be like quite a reliable witness, and a monk who is a man of God is going to have no reason to record the fact that there's something that they view as demonic that God couldn't stop. There's no motivation for them to write that down and say, yeah, these horrible hellhounds broke in and just started eating us. And God, what? Where was he? What was he doing? What was Sky Daddy doing? Like nothing
Sky
happens
Daddy.
and it goes to another church and does the same thing. It's just like snacks. You know, parishioners are just snacks. They're just tasty little hors d'oeuvres, apparently. There's just no motivation to do it. So
no.
it fascinates me as an origin story. I think it's really cool the way that super scary hellhound mythology has historic roots in that way, and I think it's really interesting in this episode. I wish they would have done them a little scarier. Like as the season goes on, they do get a lot scarier from memory. Like I remember being super scared during a specific episode. But yeah, like this episode, the scariest part to me are the jump scare faces, which we'll talk more about when we get there.
Same.
Because yeah, I don't want to spoiler the podcast too much where I talk about it out of context, but like I have to say that is super scary. And I think that is definitely the scariest part in this episode.
Yeah, same. Also, fun fact, the other day, literally like a couple of days ago from when we were recording, one of my best friends sent me a picture that's sort of like a screenshot of something she'd seen on Facebook of the same church that I've just been talking about with a black dog in front of it. Someone was like, I don't know, it was walking past. And I really wanted to go onto that comment and write, it's Black Shark.
It's Black Shark. Yeah.
But I didn't. Someone else probably did.
If no one has yet, one of us needs to, because that's just necessary.
So in the next scene, Sam and Dean go to see Sean Boyden's business partner, pretending to be from Architectural Digest, who want to write a tribute for him. And the business partner is salty about him getting a tribute. Did you notice that?
So salty. He's
so
like,
salty.
He couldn't have died sooner. I'm happy that he's dead.
Yeah, basically.
I wish he died before. Yeah.
Why haven't I got a tribute?
Yeah.
He also says he doesn't know why he would have taken his own life, as he had a charmed life, and he says that he was a genius, but it hasn't always been that way. And he basically is saying that he was a crap designer, but then one day after bartending at Lloyd's, he
was like he couldn't even design a pop-up tent.
No, he's like, he's rubbish.
He was just slating like this guy just died, and he was just slating him to strangers who are trying to write. To his mind, these people are trying to write a tribute to his dead business partner, and he is fully dragging this man.
He is. He's like, yeah, he was rubbish, but then one day he was bartending at Lloyd's at the time, and he gets a huge commission, and then is then amazing at designing overnight.
Yeah. There's this one line in this scene that really stuck out to me, which I thought was the inspiration for this episode. He says, it's funny, true geniuses, they seem to die young, don't they? To have that kind of talent. And I thought, ooh, because there's that whole thing about like the 27 Club.
He's linked to
And
that as well, isn't he?
Yep, and several other kind of like you have artists like Van Gogh and all these other people who tragically died so young. And it is interesting as a thought, and I think that that is the whole inspiration for this episode personally.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next scene, they are in front of an animal protection agency because they're trying to investigate the whole dog side of things and work out if it's a black shuck. Or if it's not a black shuck. So Dean comes out of the building and Sam says, so? And I go back and forth on this scene because I have a friend called Carly. And so on the one hand, this really amused me and entertained me. And on the other side of it, I was really annoyed. And I'll tell you all about it because I wrote it down, okay? So Dean says, the secretary's name is Carly. She's 23. She kayaks and they're real. We all know what he means, okay? And I wrote down, but seriously, that line was written by a woman. I roll. So this is the thing. It's like I have a conspiracy theory now that Sarah Gamble had it out for Dean's character a little bit because I feel like there's another episode that she wrote that we were like, why is Dean being such a dick? I'm sure that was because her name stuck out to me. And I just feel like it's disappointing Dean. Okay? Trademark. All right? She keeps giving me disappointing Dean lines. And it's so ironic. And then Sam says, you didn't happen to ask her if she's seen any black dogs lately, did you? And then he holds up a page and says, every complaint called in this week about anything big, black, or dog-like. There's 19 calls in all. And then he flips it over and he says, I don't know what this thing is. And Sam takes it and reads it, and then he laughs in Dean's face. This part's genuinely funny.
This bit is funny.
And he says, you mean Carly's MySpace address? And my Carly had a MySpace. So again, this is double layers of funny for me. And Dean says, yeah, MySpace, what the hell is that? And Sam laughs. And then Dean goes, seriously, is that like some kind of porn site? Again, this line was written by a woman.
Yeah.
It was written, Dean thinks this woman, whose giant boobs are real, apparently we needed to know that, has her own porn site that she's given him the link to because he doesn't know what MySpace is. And it's like, yes, it's kind of funny, okay? It's kind of funny, but it just feels fucked up and exploitative.
I just liked that Dean didn't know what MySpace was. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was hilarious. It was actually hilarious. But yeah, that's
and
my
I bet
first
this
rant.
dated the show massively as well, didn't it?
It really did. It really, really, really did. My favorite parts were like the friend name crossover and then the MySpace stuff because that was good.
So they then go to a house pretending to be animal control. They ask the housekeeper or the maid, I think she calls herself a maid actually.
She does, yeah.
If Dr. Sylvia Perlman is in. She says the doctor just packed up and left 2 days ago. She didn't say where she was going and she hasn't been back since. They asked the maid if she saw the stray dog that Dr. Perlman had reported, and she says she didn't see or hear it. Dean says that he read that she was the chief surgeon at the hospital, but she seems pretty young for that job. And the maid says she got the job about 10 years ago. Sam points out that this is another overnight success story.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dean picks up a photo of the doctor with some friends, and on the back it says Lloyd's Bar, November 1996. So now they have a connection between the two cases and the bar.
Mm-hmm. And they're starting to get real suspicious of this bar, as they should be.
Yes.
So then we cut to the motel room that she's in, because she's run away to a motel. And there are design choices that are made that make more sense to you now. So Laura found out that this motel is called is it the Baskerville or the Hound? I forget what it's called.
The Baskerville Motel, I think it was.
The Baskerville Motel, which is a Sherlock Holmes reference, the Hound of the Baskervilles about the phantom dog, right? That's the case. And that makes sense because my initial thoughts were that Dracula had thrown up in this motel and that it looked like a romantic era vampire had actually designed it. But now I understand it's supposed to be referencing like Victorian stuff, but everything was like red and slightly menacing. And I think there's like a black dog on the imagery, and it was just so over the top. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening. But then she told me that fun fact, and I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now.
Yeah. I didn't notice any of that.
Woohoo! Set design. Things I saw.
I keep forgetting to look at the motel, even though that's in our games, and I still forget to make notes about the motel.
I always forget to write down which quote I chose, or which thirst trap was my favorite, and you always forget to write down what the motel was like, unless it's a super strong theme, and then you're like,
if it's a
and
theme,
you have
then I'm
strong
like,
opinions.
oh yeah, theme.
Yeah, exactly. She loves a theme. Okay, so we're in this motel room that is wildly decorated, and this woman, she has long dark hair and it's kind of everywhere, and she looks super frazzled, and she's really jumpy. And so she just says, "Oh God," like she's just having a breakdown. And then she hears this huge pounding at the door, like I mean like pounding on the door. So she turns around to face it, and she's sort of like frozen. And then outside the door we see the motel manager, and he's just saying, "Miss Perlman, I've been calling for hours. You need to vacate the room or you got to pay for another night." So she opens the door and pokes her head out, and she says, "Okay, no problem." She goes over to the bed to pull out her cash, and then when she comes back, this is the first real jump scare. He has like white eyes, his skin looks dead, he's twisting like his jaw open to the side in kind of a weird way, and then he opens his eyes super inhumanly wide. And I just describe it as like zombie face.
Same.
So yeah, so there's a jump scare, but what it reminds me of is like, do you remember the faces of everybody getting killed in like The Ring? Where they're like 7 days, and then Samara comes out of the TV and kills people, and the first time that you see the body is like such a jump scare. They're just horrifically dead. That's what this was like. This episode, I was like, oh, I was not prepared.
No,
I think this is one
scary.
this is one of the best jump scares in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give this episode that. Like these jump scares were hardcore.
Yeah. I called them creepy zombie demon faces in my notes because that's what they look like to me.
Yeah, that tracks. I feel like either there's a little bit of CGI or the actors who are playing these parts also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, because I can do that with my face. And it horrifies people. And one year for Halloween, I dressed up as a zombie, and I did that with my face for most of the night, and everybody screamed. It was awesome.
You're scared of zombies. Why do you dress up like a zombie?
So my friend was going to a rock concert for a rocker who shall remain nameless because they've made controversial choices in recent years. But we were really excited. We were going out to a rock concert, and we were going out to a themed night. And she talked me into it because she was like, this will be a great way for you to face your fear. You dress up as the thing that you're scared of, and you get to be it instead of being scared of it for the night. And I thought that was a really great point. And then I traumatized a taxi driver. So we decided, like, when our taxi turned up, we decided it would be really fun to pretend that there was a zombie apocalypse. And we didn't think it would be doing too much because this is like right close to Halloween. So people have to know there's going to be pranks. So this man turns up, and we didn't see how old he was at first. Like, if we'd realized that he was like an older man, we wouldn't have done. We're like, oh no, we could have given this man a heart attack. We could have just KO'd him off of this earth. Luckily, that's not what happened, but we did get like a proper scream out of him. So like, I ran myself onto the hood of the car and then crawled up and made my horrific faces. Like,
you can't do that to people.
And she went at it from the back. And he screamed, and then we all laughed, and it was great. And he had a really good time. We had a good time, and I left him a really big tip because I felt guilty.
I wouldn't have picked you up. I'd have driven off.
That's a legitimate choice. Luckily, we all had the same sense of humor, so it was okay. The moral of the story is check how old the stranger that you're about to prank is, okay? And also, if they drive away, you just have to take that on the chin. Like, you just sort of brought that on your own head. Okay, so the next scene is at the crossroads where Lloyd's bar is. So Sam and Dean pull up and they walk over to the location and they realize they're like dead in the center of a crossroads. And also there's these yellow flowers growing everywhere. And Dean notices that and he's like, hey. And Sam's like, yeah. And Dean says, that's weird. And then we look at the crossroads and we see there's yellow flowers are just like everywhere. It's like an outline. And Sam's like, what? Why are you showing me flowers? And Dean says, do you think someone planted these? And Sam's like, in the middle of all of these weeds? And Dean goes, these are, what do you call them? And Sam goes, yarrow. And Dean says, yeah, used for certain rituals, aren't they? And Sam says, yeah, actually summoning rituals. Okay. Firstly, children, that is not what yarrow looks like. Okay, so I don't know what flowers these are, but they're not yarrow. Yarrow has this really distinctive look to it. So they're just making up plants again. It's like, do you remember that time when those hazelnut trees were paid actors as apple trees and Scarecrow? It's the same situation. These flowers were paid actors to be yarrow in this episode. They were like, it's yellow, it's close enough. Oh, great. So
well, that shows why I know, because I thought they were yarrow.
No. No. Wrong. Incorrect. So what I found was interesting when they mentioned the summoning rituals and the lore and stuff is, as somebody who practices, I know that yarrow is used in a lot of witchcraft. So I went and looked up what the myths are. So not what witches would use it for, but what are the myths that the show is drawing from? Because we know that they love a reference. So it's nicknamed the Devil's Nettle, which stems from an old superstition that Satan used to walk the streets at night and shake yarrow at the homes of those he wished to curse. Which is just honestly a hilarious image to me. So you picture the devil comes up from hell, picks flowers, okay, really pretty bright yellow flowers, wanders around like a petty bitch, and just goes, I hex you, and you, and you, through these flowers. Like, I can't get over how entertaining that is. It's also so camp. Like, it's amazing. It's so funny. Someone needs to do an animated series or something. I don't know. Okay, so then they dig up a box. They think that there's an actual summoning ritual that's been done. So they go dead center of the crossroads and they dig up a box. And when they pull it out, it contains several small bones and a jar that Sam takes out. And he says, I'd be willing to bet that's graveyard dirt and a black cat bone. And Dean says, that's serious spell work. I mean, that's deep south hoodoo stuff. And Sam goes, used to summon a demon. And Dean says, not just summon one. Crosswords are where pacts are made. These people are actually making deals with the damn thing, because that always ends good. And Sam says they're seeing dogs, all right, but not... Yeah, I know, it's great. Not black dogs. They're seeing hellhounds, demonic pit bulls. And Dean says, yeah, whoever this demon is, it's back and it's collecting. And that doctor lady, wherever she's running, she ain't running fast enough. Because they're trying to create a sense of doom. But yeah, so...
Yeah, that was creepy.
The elements that they find in the box, they find the black cat bone, which, like, firstly, leave black cats alone forever.
Yeah.
They're precious babies. Just leave them alone. I
love black cats.
Me too. But so this is actually a reference to a blues song, right? Which is called Black Cat Bone. And it's allegedly used as a metaphor for a hex. So the song is about a woman who hexes her, like, lover, basically. And black cat bone is supposed to be code for that. And then the graveyard dirt, allegedly, again, is used in spirit work and root work and hoodoo for the spirits of ancestors and protection. So it's like sort of adjacent to stuff. But because I couldn't find, like, hoodoo and voodoo are closed practices and there's so much misinformation and there's good reasons why they're closed practices. Anytime I have a white source, I'm just going to say allegedly, because there's so much out there that has been made up or, like, is left of being right that I think we can kind of only really cite it as, like, maybe. But I think that is the kind of information that the show will incorporate in its lore. So I'm pretty sure that that's what they're referencing, because it's another super famous blues artist who follows along in the line in the tradition of the Delta blues. So like Black Cat Bone, and then there's a little Black Cat Bone in the box, and then you have Graveyard Dirt, which is a reference to hoodoo. So it all kind of tracks as like the lore drop for the show.
Okay. My only note for that scene was that it's a good job no one was driving down the road when they were digging in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we got back to the motel. The door is almost rattling off its hinges at this point, and we hear Dr. Perlman whimpering and crying inside. She's sat on the floor with her hands over her ears, and all of a sudden the rattling stops and it all goes quiet. So she gets up and looks like she's about to go and investigate. And I was shouting at my television. I'm like, "Why? Why are you going over towards the door?" But she doesn't end up getting that far because the window breaks behind her and she's knocked to the ground. We then hear snarling dogs again, and it backs her into a corner and then attacks her and drags her away. It kind of like rips her trouser leg or something, doesn't it?
I have a note about this part. It says, "Can I just say they tear up her clothes? Okay, fine, whatever." It's just like, it's sexy tears. This is my problem with it. It's like sexy werewolf tears that happen. And then there's no blood. If there would have been blood, okay, it's a horror. It's become a slasher. There's no blood. Okay. So it's just like sexy tears. It's just like, ugh.
It just ripped her trouser and not her leg.
Exactly. What is the point? And then they drag her screaming, and suddenly there's all of this blood. And I wrote, from where? Why? It's like she just got her period. This is rejected because it's just a drag from under her butt. What? No. It's period horror, but it's not horror. What the hell, man?
So then we get a scene that shows us what happened in the past and how Robert Johnson buried a ritual bag in the centre of the same crossroads that Dean found the tin in earlier and made a deal with a demon. And when the demon appears, I have a fun fact. Yeah, which I put in just for you, Joy. So,
what is it?
The actress that played the demon, did you recognise her?
I didn't recognize her. I was just like, oh my god, she's so pretty. She's super hot. Yes to demon deals. Yes.
She was the same actress who played Laurie's roommate in Hookman. So she was Taylor. Was it Taylor?
Taylor!
We were like...
Taylor lives! They left Taylor alone! Yes!
Because we were like, everyone leave Taylor alone.
Yes! Oh, that's a victory. That's awesome. I love that so much. I didn't because I think her outfits and stuff when she plays Taylor are so different to the way that she looks when she's playing this demon.
Yeah.
I fully blanked on her, and I was too busy being thirst trapped.
Oh yeah, I didn't recognise her either. I got that from IMDb.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
And when she appears, he says, "Holy," and I was like, what's he going to say? Holy shit or something. But then she says, "Holy," and her eyes turn red and demony. Guess again. And then I kind of had a flag about the demon eyes. But it wasn't a flag. It's just that I feel like they need to just choose an eye and stick with it. Because we've got red CGI eyes this time. We've had yellow contact lenses, which in fairness, the actors couldn't see when they were wearing them apparently. So It makes sense that they would change it. And then they've had the blackout eyes. Yeah. And I think they should just stick to one. I'd prefer the CGI, black ones, I think.
The CGI silver eyes. And the CGI vampire eyes.
Yeah, but they're not the demon. There's 3 different types of demon eyes so far.
It's just too many for you.
There should be a demon eye.
I like it because I feel like they're giving us different varieties of demons. So you have like
different
the
types.
yellow-eyed. Yeah, the yellow-eyed demon is like demon royalty, and he gets like gold, like yellow gold eyes. And then the Crossroad demon, who is the temptress and associated with the Black Shuck, who has red eyes, right? And then she has red eyes. That's kind of fun for me. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I also thought it looked pretty creepy the way that it happens in the episode. I really appreciate. I thought it was great. Yeah. I like it. But I wrote down somewhere that you were going to have notes about the eyes because
I don't have a
it's
problem
another
with the
eye.
red eyes, as it's just the fact that there's lots of different demon eyes. So, so are there different varieties of demon then?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense then. I'll allow it.
Thank you. Thank you for this, Grace. Yeah. So basically, Robert says, "How do we shake on it?" And then they effectively make out. Like she kisses him, but she's like French kissing him from memory. Like
Yeah.
I think the demons always go like all in because that happens later with Dean as well. And there's a funny
Oh
line
yeah.
about that. So yeah, it's funny. And then he pulls his guitar into his hands and we can tell that something's different. So then we're back at the crossroads and it's day, and Sam's saying, so it's just like the Robert Johnson legend, right? I mean, selling your soul at the crossroads kind of a deal. And Dean says, yeah, except that wasn't a legend. I mean, you know his music. And Sam shrugs and he says, you don't know Robert Johnson's songs? Sam, there's occult references all over his lyrics. I mean, Crossroad Blues, me and the Devil Blues, Hellhound on my trail. Sam frowns and Dean like rolls his eyes at him. And he says, the story goes he died choking on his own blood. He was hallucinating and muttering about big evil dogs. And Sam says, and now it's happening all over again. And Dean goes, yeah. So they basically say they got to figure out if anybody else struck any bargains around there. And Dean has a hissy fit and says, great. So we've got to clean up these people mess for them. I mean, they're not exactly squeaky clean. Nobody put a gun to their head and forced them to play, let's make a deal. And I actually thought that he has kind of a valid point there. Like, these people fucked up their own lives.
I read that Dean seems to have forgotten the family motto. Well, at least the saving people part, anyway.
I don't know. I just feel like if you're gonna sell your soul for fame, you know what you signed up for. Like, that's not like you didn't walk into the woods and get attacked by a werewolf. You specifically went down to the crossroads and made a deal knowing exactly what you were doing. Like, you signed up for that shit. That's your problem. So,
all right, Dean.
Yeah, we just the same person again. So she's Sam and I'm Dean again.
Well, all right, Sam's being compassionate and hot.
Oh my god. So Dean says somebody goes over Niagara in a barrel. You gonna jump in and try and save him? And literally that is exactly what I thought. So same page. And Sam just goes, Dean. It's like Laura's tone right now with me. And Dean's like, all right, fine. And then he says, rituals like this, you've got to put your own photo into the mix, right? So this guy probably summoned this thing. Let's go and see if anyone inside knows him or if he's still alive. So they go and they figure out who he is. And they realize where he is, too. They track him down to his apartment building. And they say his name is George Darrow, and apparently he was quite the regular at Lloyd's. Though this house probably ain't up next on MTV Cribs, is it? And I was like, really?
Why are they slagging off his house?
I don't know. It's stupid. Like, I think they're trying to make the point that he didn't choose
didn't
wealth.
make it, didn't get famous.
Yeah, because all the others got really famous and got loads of money, but he's different. He's like this standout.
I'm like, Dean and Sam, look at yourselves. You have a car. You don't even have a house.
You're... Yeah.
Stop judging.
Stop being so judgy. Yeah. So then Dean says, I hate it. Dean says, wasn't for cash. Oh, who knows? Maybe this place is full of babes and Princess Leia bikinis. And Sam sighed, and I sighed, and I was like, really? What? Again? Again. And I just put, me too, Sam. Me too.
Yeah.
So then
too.
Yeah. They reach the landing, and they see that there's a black powder on the floor, and Sam says, look at that. And then they crouch down, and Dean says, what is that, pepper? And the door opens, and there's George. And George is like, who the hell are you? Which is valid. And Dean says, George Darrow. And George is like, I'm not buying anything, which again, is valid. And Dean goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Looks like you went for the wrong shaker there. Usually when you want to keep something evil out, you go for the salt. And I'm just like, Dean, shut the fuck up. And George goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And Dean says, talking about this. And then he holds up the photo and he says, tell me, you see a hellhound yet? And Sam is like, "You're such a dick." Like, he's silently, like, you can see him judging Dean. And it's kind of valid, to be honest with you at this point. So Sam says, "Look, we wanna help, please, just 5 minutes." He's quite charming, and you just think, "Thank fuck for Sam." Okay? Because what is Dean even doing? Honestly. So, I go into George's apartment, um, and I just wrote down, "I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about the choices that were made with the way they decorated this man's apartment." Um, it just feels weird and, like, over the top, like, they're trying so hard to show that he practices hoodoo that they go really Hollywood with it, and it gives me the ick, okay? It gives me the ick. So then Sam says, "What's that stuff out front?" And George says, "It's goofer dust." And they look at him blank, and he says, "What, you boys think you know something about something, but not goofer dust?" And he tosses Dean this brown sack, and, Dean looks at it, and he says, "Well, we know a little about a lot of things, just enough to make us dangerous." And I was like, "Shut up, Dean." Um, so Sam says, "What is it?" And George says, "Hoodoo, my grandma taught me, keeps out the demons." And Dean goes, "Demons we know." And George says, "Well, then maybe it'll do you some good." And he walks over to the chair, and he says, "You got 4 minutes left." And Sam takes the lead, and Dean looks at Sam like, you know how to talk to people, you do it." So Sam's all polite, and he says, "Mr. Darrow, we know you're in trouble." And Dean goes, "Yeah, that you got yourself into." And Sam is so annoyed, and he's like, "But it's not hopeless, all right? There's gotta be something we can do." And, George says, "Listen, I get that you boys wanna help, but sometimes a person makes their bed, they've just gotta lie down in it. I'm the one that called that demon in the first place." And Dean says, "What did you do it for?" And George says, "I was weak. I mean, who don't wanna be great? Who don't want their life to mean something? I never thought about the price." And I wrote down, "No. No, no, no." Because he said that his grandmother was a practitioner, so he comes from a family of hoodoo, of root work, but he somehow doesn't know what the price would be or what. I just wrote, "This is a flag of ridiculousness." Um, this is also the perfect place for my Easter eggs about the hoodoo. So, um, I found a scholarly article about misconceptions about hoodoo. It says, "Scholars who write about African traditions in the United States have become concerned over the work that has been done by those who are outside to cultural traditions," says Hazard Donald, an associate professor of sociology, anthropology, and criminal justice at Rutgers Camden. For example, some of the material in African culture and tradition presents premises that are inaccurate. This is what happened a lot with hoodoo. Hoodoo is a form of traditional African American folk magic that developed from a combination of beliefs of a number of separate African cultures after they came to the United States during the slave trade. It is not to be confused with voodoo or voodooin. I'm not totally sure how to pronounce it when it's spelled the accurate way, which is Vodoun. Um, it's a West African religion, although hoodoo began as a religion and lost its religious status after the 1880s. In her book, Hazard Donald says hoodoo first emerged in the southeastern United States when people from West African tribes of the Congo, Sierra Leone, and present day Ghana came to America. The cultural profile of those three regions is very different and the religions are different, Hazard Donald says. But after 1807, the African slaves are united under common material culture, and hoodoo begins to emerge out of these distinct African religious traditions. Hazard Donald says hoodoo beliefs are purely naturalistic and practices used naturally obtained supplies like herbs, minerals, and even animals. For example, chewing the root was done to release the sap of a plant to conjure spiritual power. However, hoodoo practices began to be commercially marketed, modified, and fabricated. She goes on to say that there's a tremendous amount of exploitation that has taken place among merchants, and hoodoo emerges as a commercial enterprise right around World War I among people who are not believers or practitioners, even though they were willing to sell it. Hazard Donald explains that what many people start to see is something that I call commercialized or tourist hoodoo. It has been presented as the real authentic hoodoo, she says. Commercial marketers gleaned information from partial conversations with people uneducated on hoodoo practices and other faulty assumptions. In commercial marketing, one might see hot foot powder, which is derived from a misunderstanding of the traditional spell known as the walking foot. which was designed to make victims walk in unusual ways or make their legs tremble. It's the kind of novelty item found in many shops in New Orleans and across the country. And she says that commercial marketers have capitalized on hoodoo practices to make money. I wanted to go back and provide an account of how we turned traditional African religion into a novelty, to something sold in curio shops. I wanted to point out the shortcomings in these interpretations and show readers what really happened. The link to the full interview and all of her materials are in my show notes. She is an African American academic, so it's passionate for her because she's speaking about something that is important to her personally. I have tried to make sure that all of my resources for this episode that are quoted are from academics and journalists, and that it's firsthand and it's coming from the community, so that they are legitimate sources.
Cool.
But it's basically like there's a conversation that persists in the show notes that talks about how hoodoo has been bundled up and sold and changed, and most people don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. So when he talks about goofer dust, that's linked to the hot foot spell. So the actual origins of that particular piece of magic is the hot foot spell that was just discussed in that article. And it's really interesting when you start digging into it and you realize how much like the horror genre has misappropriated and then added to misinformation. And I wanted to read this other article that I found that was written for Variety, which talks about how Hollywood has failed Black witches according to real Black witches, that I found fascinating. It's not that long. That when we think about, there's a part in the article where she mentions a tragic practitioner, right? Like that the practitioners, like Black practitioners, don't get the same treatment as white ones do. And that's exactly what this character is, which is part of why this episode brings me down a little bit. So she says, for years, witchcraft has had a traditional look in popular entertainment: pointy hats, broomsticks, spells, and potions, and usually white, aside from a few supporting character examples. Black witchcraft has remained a blind spot in this witchy narrative. There's no version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch for Black witches. So we asked the real members of this varied spiritual practice today how Hollywood can do better for Black witchcraft. Ngenge Makosi has been practicing hoodoo in Los Angeles her entire life, a tradition she learned from her grandmother, but says she's never felt her practice was accurately represented in the media. She says it's always either someone using curses, sacrificial animals, or calling on evil spirits, she says, which like literally he summons a demon. Hoodoo, also known as conjuring or root work, is a cultural tradition practiced largely in the southern United States with ties to Yoruba religious spirits and deities similar to voodoo and Santeria. As someone who's active in the community and spiritual healing, Makosi finds a number of flaws in her culture's presentation on the big and small screens. She said that she would like to see more community, that the characters are always a lone wolf, which he is, he ticks that box too, plotting somewhere in silence. I wish they would show the doctors, the teachers, the preachers. I wish there was more involvement from Black witches in the creation of these shows. Nevertheless, even in fictional stories, Hollywood's minority witch characters are unable to escape the grasp of racism and its many branches. The characters are either expected to rise above racist microaggressions and attacks, or demonized for seeking retribution. Black witches have a tendency to fall into two categories: supportive friends to the more powerful and popular protagonist, or a witch with some malevolent quality. So the article goes on to say that historically speaking, today's representations are a continuation of the stereotypical Black characters that we've seen before. So American Hoodoo is being represented more often on TV of late. But unlike its representations, there's a huge difference between the real sacred practice and what we see on TV and in movies. Speaking on the topic, a leading academic said it goes back to the Haitian Revolution, which actually scared the shit out of America because it was the first and only successful national slave revolution in world history. And of course, what America saw was that the vast slave population in the United States could do this too. And so there was the immediate beginning of the degradation of the African diaspora religions. Yeah, so my issue here when we look at this scene is he is the tragic character. He is the practitioner of hoodoo who is like ended up summoning the demon that causes all of the drama. He doesn't get a happy ending. And the dude that gets saved is this already successful white bro. So I
Yeah.
just can't help but feel that this episode leans into those stereotypes. And then when you look at the decorations in his apartment and the random like skulls and shit, it just feels uncomfy. Like it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, because they could have asked the demon to save both of them. Although I suppose George had said that he was done. He didn't really care anyway. But
Yeah, again,
yeah, they
he's
just kind of left him.
totally depressed and miserable, and it's like what she says about the lone wolf character who just doesn't get a happy ending ever. Like he's literally there to be in the narrative to provide tragedy and to associate hoodoo with not great stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it just feels wrong. It just feels really wrong. The article is a little bit longer and there are more links. Everything's in the show notes for you guys. There's bonus information and material later on in the show notes too. But yeah, I don't like it. And that's been my essay on why I don't like that scene.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So he goes on to say that after he summoned the demon stayed for weeks, and then he names the other characters that we know about, and also the next character that they're going to go to save, Evan. It was a bland name. I was
Who's
like,
Alan?
bland white dude name. Evan. Yeah. So this is how they find out about Evan, because he has been keeping track of the people that he feels responsible for. And he feels responsible because the demon stayed at the bar and then just kept entrapping other souls and spreading the
Yeah.
misery and the terror.
So we then cut to a man who's at a desk working, and this is Evan, and a dog barks outside the window and startles him, and then he gets up and checks outside. His wife comes in and asks if he's spying on the neighbours, and he says he just thought he heard something out there. She then says that she's going away for the weekend. And see, I was confused here. It seems like it was suggested by him because he looks worried. Is he like
Yeah.
sending her away because he knows the
He's sending
dogs are
her
coming
away to
after him?
save her. Yeah, he knows
Okay.
that his deal is up and he's going to die. And there's this line where she says, "What are you going to do all weekend?" And I wrote, "Die horribly and be dragged to hell." You know, hot girl stuff.
Hot girl stuff. Hot girl summer.
I wrote down, his whole storyline is heroic, basic white guy. Trademark.
And then she says goodbye, and as she's leaving, she turns around and she has one of those demon zombie faces as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, this is what I wrote. I don't like this effect at all. It's actually really scary.
It's so scary. He says, "I'll miss you," and his eyes are all haunted. And she says, "Hey, sweetie." And then he looks at her, and there's these screaming minor chords, and her face goes dead, and her eyes are all white. And then there's also like dark makeup around her eyes to make them look even huger. And her whole face contorts into this twisted scream. And it's horrible. But then what makes it even worse is then we cut back to her and she's smiling and normal and says, "I love you too." And it's like the juxtaposition between the horrificness of it and then her normal happy smiling loving face, like the contrast between the two is so extreme that it makes it a way stronger jump scare.
Yeah. It's like double jump scare.
Mm-hmm.
So then Sam and Dean arrive at Evan's house, and Dean just straight up asks if he's ever been to Lloyd's bar as soon as he opens the door. It's like, at least wait until you get inside, Dean.
Dean has no social skills at all.
Because Evan just slams the door in his face straight away.
Yep. Which, I mean, fair.
And then Dean's like, "Come on, we're not demons." I thought that was funny.
That was so funny. I love that line. So then Sam says, "Any other bright ideas?" And Dean steps back, sets himself, and then he kicks the door down in one go. And I wrote, "Thirst trap." Okay. And then they charge in, and then there's another door that's shut, and he goes to kick it down, and Sam literally catches his foot, and Dean's like, "What?" And Sam doesn't say anything. He just pushes on the handle, which just opens because it wasn't even locked. And I was laughing so hard, and he looks at him like, "You
So
idiot." Yeah. And Dean just looks kind of kind of like, oh god. I don't know how to describe what he looked like. It was funny.
Sam was kind of like gestures as if to say, oh, we could just open the door. You don't have to
Yeah.
kick it down.
You could just try to see if it's locked first. Crazy person.
That's funny. I just put an eye roll in my notes.
So then in the next scene, Evan tells them his lore. So basically, Sam calls out for him like a normal human because Sam has social skills. And Evan jumps out from behind a bookshelf and screams, "Please don't hurt me." And Sam's like, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay." He says, "We're not going to hurt you, all right? We're here to help you." And Dean's all sarcastic and angry this whole entire time. And also looks like a total asshole. Like, you know how in some of the episodes he gives us like secondhand embarrassment? This is one of those times where he gives us secondhand embarrassment. And
Yeah.
I dislike it.
My rant is
So
coming up, by the way.
excellent, excellent. So Sam says that they know about what's going on and they want to help him. And Evan's like, "How do I know you're not lying?" And Dean says, "Well, you don't, but you're kind of running low on options there, buddy boy." Again, kind of being a jerk. And so Evan says, "Can you stop it?" And Sam says, "We don't know, but we'll try." And Evan says, "I don't want to die." And Dean says, "Of course you don't, not now." And Sam's like, "Dean, stop." And then Dean goes off on one. He goes, "What did you ask for anyway, Evan, huh? Never to need Viagra, a bowl of perfect game, what?" And Evan says, "My wife." And Dean laughs, "Right, getting the girl. Well, that's worth a trip to hell for." And Sam's like, "Dean, stop." And Evan says, "No, he's right. I made the deal. Nobody twisted my arm. That woman or whatever she was at the bar, she said I could have anything I wanted. I thought she was nuts at first, but I don't know how to. I was desperate." And Sam says, "Desperate?" Evan says, "Julie was dying." And Dean says, "You did it to save her?" And Evan said, "She has cancer. They stopped treatment. They were moving her into hospice. They kept saying it was a matter of days. So yeah, I made the deal. And I'd do it again. I'd have died for her on the spot." And Dean says, "Did you ever think about her and all this?" And Evan's like, "I did this for her." And Dean squares up to him and says, "You sure about that? I think you did it for yourself, so you wouldn't have to live without her. But guess what? She's going to have to live without you now. But what if she knew how much it cost? What if she knew it cost your soul? How do you think she'd feel?" And Sam's like, "Okay, that's enough." And literally pulls Dean backwards. And he tells Evan that they're gonna figure some stuff out. And he follows him out. But I wrote, "Dean will feel like an asshole in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1." But then,
Yeah, but he
I wrote,
doesn't, though.
he immediately, well, he does for a minute. You could see it on his face, but then he immediately projects his daddy issues on Evan.
Yeah.
And Sam, the subtext from Sam is, "I'm sorry, my brother is unhinged." And that's basically what happened. What did your notes say, Laura? Because
This is my rant. So I had said that, does Dean feel bad for what he said? Oh no, apparently not, as he continues to berate the man. Why is he like this? And I thought he was so caring at the start of season 1. I know we've discussed that he changed when he was brought back to life, because you mentioned that, because he's
yeah,
died twice.
yeah,
But then I wrote, but is it just that? Is it also because he knows that he shouldn't be alive and is projecting what he really feels about himself onto these other people?
mm-hmm.
And then I put, especially because Evan's story is basically the same as John and Dean's story. And then I have
Yeah.
a question. I put, is he just going to be like this forever now? As I'm starting to like him less, to be honest. I put, he's still an entertaining character, but I don't really like him at the moment.
He is pretty unlikable at this moment in time. It will not stay like this forever.
Okay, good.
Honestly, I blame the writing. Like, I don't view these episodes as core Dean character episodes because I don't really feel like they're very accurate to who he is as a person. I
Is
will
this like what they did to
forewarn
Sam in
you.
season 1?
Yeah. I will forewarn you that there's waves of trauma throughout the different seasons, and Dean's response to trauma can
Yeah.
sometimes be to double down and be a jerk, but it's written a lot better in other episodes, in my opinion, than it is in this one. This one just doesn't feel right
Okay.
to me.
Mm.
But
Because
yeah,
you mentioned in season 1 about how Sam, the writing for Sam, they realised they'd made him too unlikable and then kind of
yeah,
turned it around. And I feel like
yeah,
that's might be what they're doing to Dean.
I
They're making him
agree.
too unlikable.
I totally agree. So then Sam asks Dean if he's all right, and he says, "Yeah, why wouldn't I be? I got an idea." And then he pulls out the goofer dust and he gives it to Sam and he says, you throw George's hoodoo at the hellhound and keep it away from Evan as long as you can. I'm going to go to the crossroads and summon the demon. And Sam's like, are you insane? And Dane's like, maybe a little, but I can trap it, I can exercise it, and I can buy us time to figure out something more permanent.
I wrote, Dean wants to summon a demon, like father, like son, I guess. And I had to make a note. I had to go back and write, I literally wrote this before I got to the bit where the demon that Dean summons says that exact line.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had written down Sam, father issues, the musical. Because Sam was like basically saying that Dean has lost his mind and that like it totally has to do with their dad. And he says, you know, you've been on edge ever since we found that Crossroads, Dean, and I think I know why. And Dean says, we don't have time for this because, ew, feelings. And he tries to leave, but Sam says, Dad, do you think maybe Dad made one of these deals, huh? Hell, I've been thinking it. I'm sure you've been thinking it too. And Dean says, it fits, doesn't it? I'm alive, Dad's dead. The yellow-eyed demon was involved. What if he did? What if he struck a deal? My life for his soul. And then Evan interrupts and says, I think I hear it. It's outside. And Dean says, just keep him alive, okay? And Sam's like, Dean. And Dean goes, go. And then he just leaves.
All right. Evan interrupts the brotherly therapy session saying he thinks he hears something outside.
Yeah. So Dean summons the demon, and I wrote down Demon Barbie Hot Girl. And this is the part where I have the note about the red-eyed demon effects.
Yeah, this is where I had my thing about the three eye colors, but I've already said.
Yeah. So he puts his photo in the box, buries it at the crossroads. The demon is gorgeous. She appears to him. I feel like we're left to believe that it's maybe the same demon that just takes on the perfect form to tempt whoever it is who has summoned it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the demon says, so what brings a guy like you to a place like this? And she says, you called me. And Dean says, I'm just glad it worked. And Demon says, first time. And Dean says, you could say that. And the demon says, come on now, don't sell yourself short. I know all about you, Dean Winchester. And this is interesting. This is where her red eye glow comes in. But this part I thought was interesting because it's like, apparently the demons are still watching the Winchesters. And it's sort of like adding to the lore.
I like how she says they have a newsletter.
Yeah.
I imagined like an actual newsletter being sent out to all the demons.
I love it so much. Yeah. Dean says, so you know who I am? And she says, I get the newsletter. That's the part that Laura's talking about. I love it so much. And Dean says, well, don't keep me in suspense. What have you heard? And the demon says, well, I heard you were handsome, but you're just edible. What can I do for you, Dean? And Dean says, maybe we should do this in my car, nice and private. And it's like the subtext is honestly pretty filthy.
Yeah, let's do it in the car.
Yeah.
So then we cut back to Sam and Evan, and Sam is putting the goofer dust around the room and around Evan in a circle. And I wrote, what happened to his love of salt?
Those low sodium freaks.
Sam used to put like so much salt everywhere before.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Dean asking the demon to release Evan from his contract. And she says that's not negotiable. And he says that he'll offer himself in return. And she's like, well, you'd sacrifice your life for someone else's, like father, like son. And then I just wrote, ooh, confirmation.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Dean finally has the confirmation that this has happened. We already knew it as an audience, but he didn't. He is shook.
Yeah, he is shooketh. So then it cuts to Sam and Evan, and Sam's finishing the circle of protection. And then he says, that's the last of it. Because we need to know that they don't have stuff to protect themselves with anymore. And what he's just put down is everything. Because I guess that's important. Important for the drama.
Yeah.
Then it cuts back to the crossroads. And the demon saying, you did know about your dad's deal, right? His life for yours? Oh, I didn't make the deal myself, but boy, I wish I had. And Dean is getting angrier and angrier, and he's opening the passenger side door. And he says, after you. And the demon says, such a gentleman. But as she's starting to get into the car, she looks down and she can see the devil's trap coming from underneath. And the demon says, a devil's trap? You've got to be kidding me.
But it's just a decoy devil's trap.
The spoilers. Yeah. So then we flip back to the Hudson house at night, and Evan hears phantom noises. And Sam's like, what? and we hear this demonic dog growling, and Sam says, "No, where?" Because he can't hear anything, but Evan's reacting. And then he hears it, and the doors, everything starts kicking off. So like the doors start shaking and rattling. We hear the demon growling, and this part makes me laugh because Sam like looks around and then he steps inside the circle of protection.
Yeah, I liked that as well.
Oh god, that was so funny. He just looks like, oh fuck, and then he jumps in.
He sells it well. He acts it well because he can't hear, and that would be really scary if you couldn't
Yeah,
hear what was going on. But
it is scary because Sam can't hear the dogs. He can only interpret Evan's reactions, and then when it starts physically affecting the building around him, so like the doors start shaking, and that is
yeah,
scarier probably because you're handicapped. Like you can't see them, you can't hear them, but the other person can, and it does definitely add something to make it freakier. So then we cut back to the demon, and she's saying, "You stupid, stupid, I should rip you limb from limb." And she slams the car door shut and advances on Dean, who backs up into this wooden structure. And I'm happy to know that whoever wrote this transcript also didn't know what the fuck this thing was. I was like, what is it? Is it an arbor? Is it a like it is it the underneath of a bridge? Is it
I
a
didn't know what it
parking?
was either.
What is it?
It looked
No one
like it
knows.
could have been like a water tower or something, but it
Eh,
wasn't. It was too low down. I don't know. I don't know what it was.
so weird, so random. If anybody knows, please explain it to me because I was just like, what is that even? So Dean is saying, "Take your best shot." And the demon says, "No, I don't think so. I'm not going to put you out of your misery." And Dean says, "Yeah, why not?" And the demon says, "Because your misery is the whole point. It's too much fun to watch, knowing how your daddy died for you, how he sold his soul. I mean, that's got to hurt." And Dean backs up against the railing. And she says, "It's all you ever think about. You wake up and your first thought is, I can't do this anymore. You're all lit up with pain. I mean, you loved him so much, and it's all your fault." And Dean kind of recoils backwards into the thing. And we think that it's emotional damage, which, like, I'm sure it is emotional damage, but also he's leading her in. And she says, "You blew it, Dean. I could have given you what you need." And Dean says, "What do I need?" And the demon says, "Your father, I could have brought him back. Your loss. See, Dean, I wish you a nice long life." And then, right at the last second, as she's walking away, he says, "Hold on." And then she stops and she gives him the most evil smile. And we as an audience are going, oh, fuck. Because Dean has all the daddy issues ever. Okay. He's peak
Mhm.
daddy issues. And we're like, this is, oh shit, I don't know what he's going to do. Like, especially when you're watching it for the first time, you go, this motherfucker is about to sell his soul, isn't he? He's
Yeah,
absolutely about to sell his soul.
I
So
thought
then,
he might do it at one point. It crossed my mind.
yep, yep, yep. So we cut back to the Hellhounds, and the rattling becomes super violent. Like there's a crescendo, and then it just suddenly stops. And Sam asks if Evan still hears it, and Evan says, "No, is it over?" And then there's this rumbling sound coming from this like AC vent or grating, some kind of like ventilation system. And they both turn around, and then it suddenly explodes outward, like kicking all this dust into the room. And you go, "Oh fuck, they've broken into the house." And they're the only thing that's between them and these monsters is this little circle.
Yeah, this is kind of the start of the stupid bit, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it really is. So meanwhile, the demon turns back and Dean is now standing all the way like inside the wooden structure and he looks super defeated, like his head's down. And the demon says, "You're lucky I've got a soft spot for lost puppies and long faces. I just can't leave you like this. Besides, you didn't call me here to bargain for Evan." Not really.
She's not wrong though. He does look adorable in this bit.
He does. So Dean says, "Can you bring him back, my dad?" And the demon says, "Of course I can, just as he was. Your dad would live a long and natural life like he was meant to. That's a promise." And Dean says, "What about me?" And the demon says, "I can give you 10 years, 10 long, good years with him. That's a lifetime. The family can be together again. John, Dean, Sammy, the Winchester boys all reunited." And she's like walking towards him the whole time she's saying it in this slightly tempting, but also slightly menacing way. And she says, "Look, Your dad's supposed to be alive. You're supposed to be dead. So we'll just set things straight, put things back in their natural order, and you'll get 10 years on top. That's a bonus." And she's super close to him, so he walks further in. And at this point, you're going, "Oh, fuck. We're all fucked." And then Dean says, "You think you could," and then he turns around to face her and he says, "throw in a set of steak knives?" And she says, "This smart ass self-defense mechanism of yours," but she's taking a step forward. And then she suddenly looks up because, bitch, you fell for it. This is the same thing that he pulled with Megan. It's so satisfying each time. I don't even mind that they repeated the same trap. So she says that line, and then she looks up, and then there's the devil's trap, and then she's glaring at him, and she goes, "Dean." And I thought that was so funny because that's like how Sam does it. Sam's like, "Dean." And Dean's like, "Now you're really trapped. That's gotta hurt." And the demon says, "Let me out now." And Dean's like, "Sure. We just gotta make a little deal here first. You call off your hellhounds and let Evan go, then I'll let you go." And the demon says, "I can't break a binding contract." And he's like, "Huh. And by can't, you mean don't want to?" Last chance. Evan and his wife get delivered to a ripe old age, going. The demon says, "Let's talk about this." And he says, "Okay, gone." And then he circles around her and pulls out their dad's journal, which we know has the exorcism rite in it.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Hudson's house. And the barking is growing louder and louder and louder. And they're surrounding Sam and Evan from the outside of the circle. And Sam starts shouting at Evan to make sure that he stays inside the circle and he doesn't run away. And then this is when the claw marks appear on the floor. And I just heard the dog claw marks are CGI and it's pure cheese. It looks so fake. It looks so fake. And I feel like up until that they were doing a good job of building up the fear factor. And then you just see these like super cheesy, not even as good as the 90s CGI claw marks on the floor just appear, just like pencil shavings, and you go, ugh.
Yeah, they're not like proper scratches. They just, my notes just say, this effect was a bit shit, to be honest.
Amen. It was so bad. It was so dumb. It was terrible. So then Dean has the journal open and he's holding a rosary in his hand, and the demon says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, you're just gonna go on a little trip way down south." And that's pretty funny. And the demon says, "Forget Evan, think of your dad." And Dean says, "Regna terre cante Dio." So he starts angrily chanting Latin, which, as we all know, is hot. And he starts exorcising her, and she's like flinching and convulsing. And then interspersed with these shots, we're seeing shots of Sam and Evan backing away. And then this mysterious wind starts eating away at the protective circle, which we now know is associated with the Black Shuck because of Laura. So it kind of fits with the lore. Before I was like, this is stupid, but now I'm like, I see. I understand. So then over Dean's continued exorcism, we see Sam and Evan. And Sam says, "The circle's broken, come on." And then he pulls Evan out of the room and runs down the hall because the hellhounds are going to eat him up real quick. And there are quick cuts between Dean's exorcism and their frantic escape. And Dean's voice chanting the angry Latin, the hot angry Latin, is continuing over all of it. And Sam and Dean are darting into this storeroom and they slam the door behind them. And Sam braces himself against it as the hellhounds start to try to break it down. And we go back to the crossroads, and Dean says, "Impotentus magnifi." And the demon's screaming, "Wait!" And then we go back to the Hudson house, and the violent pounding stops, and everything goes quiet, and Sam and Evan look around, terrified. And then we go back to the crossroads. There's too much chopping and changing for me. And Dean and the demon are locked in a passionate kiss. She breaks it, and then he steps back and blinks. And Dean says, "What the hell was that for?" And she says, "Sealing the deal." And he says, "I usually like to be warned before I'm violated with demon tongue." And I was like, again with the usually, Dean? Usually you draw the line at necrophilia. What was it he says to the vampire?
I usually draw the line at necrophilia.
I usually draw the line at necrophilia. I usually like to be warned before I'm violated. How many times have you been violated with demon tongue? Just saying. Like, what? What? So that was fun. So then the demon says Evan Hudson is free. He and his wife will live long lives. And Dean says, "How do I know you're not lying?" And the demon says, "My word is my bond." And Dean's like, "Oh, really?" And the demon says, "It is when I make a deal. It's the rules. You got what you wanted. Now let me go." So Dean steps back and looks up at the devil's trap, and then he keeps the rosary like he's about to exorcise her. And the demon says, "You're gonna double cross me? Funny how I'm the trustworthy one." And Dean kind of shrugs at her, and she says, "You know, you renege, send me to hell. Sooner or later, I'm gonna climb out, and skinning Evan Hudson will be the first thing that I do." So he smiles and he puts the rosary away, climbs up and breaks the protective circle over her head so that she can get out. And she says, "I gotta tell you, you would never have pulled that stunt if you knew." And Dean says, "Knew what?" And the demon says, "Where your dad is. You should have made that deal. See, people talk about hell. It's just a word. It doesn't even come close to describing the real thing." And Dean says, "Shut your mouth, bitch." And the demon says, "If you could see your poor daddy, hear the sounds he makes because he can't even scream." And Dean keeps advancing and says, "How about I send you back there?" And then for no reason at all, she fucking exercises herself. Like the demon just leaves her body and there's just this poor, pretty confused girl. What the fuck, Laura, was that?
I don't know. And I still don't like that demon dust cloud that comes out of their mouths. And also, hang
Yeah,
on, I wrote something
demon
in my notes.
dust.
I wrote, I don't like it when they do this, when the demon leaves the body. One, it makes me jump. And two, it sounds like and looks like they're being sick. I don't like it.
I like the jump scare of it. I think that's good horror. Um, but I hear what you're saying about the demon dust also kind of coming across as like vomit. Kind of gross. Not really. I don't know. I don't know if it adds to it or subtracts from it. I don't know how I feel about it. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like, why would she just leave?
Yeah, I don't
It
get it.
doesn't make any sense. It just the writing. What is it? Why is it? Okay. So then we cut again, and we're in the Impala, and Big Bill Brunzi, his song again, another blues artist who's from this group is playing, and it's called "Key to the Highway," which is interesting because they're in the Impala, so it's just kind of like playing on the whole on the road theme of the show. So Dean goes on this rant basically, like they're having a conversation, and Dean goes on this rant that feels to me like he feels like John should have somehow magically saved everyone, like this kid view of his dad, that he should have forced the yellow-eyed demon to bring Dean back and then just shoot him in the head with the Colt or something. And I guess Dean doesn't have all the information. So he can't figure out why his dad would give up and make a deal. And
Yeah.
it's implied that he feels like John gave up and it wasn't like a proper warrior's death. And he talks about how John really should have gone out fighting. And Sam says that he did it for Dean. And then Dean says, "Exactly, how am I supposed to live with that? You know, the thought of him wherever he is right now. I mean, he spent his whole life chasing that yellow-eyed son of a bitch. He should have gone out fighting. That was supposed to be his legacy, you know, not bargaining with the damn thing, not this." And Sam says, "How many people do you think Dad saved total?" And Dean says, "That's not the point, Sam." And Sam says, "Evan Hudson is safe because of what Dad taught us. That's his legacy, Dean, because we're still here, man. So we got to keep going for him." And then Dean doesn't really reply. And then eventually he says, "Yeah." And Sam says, "When you were trapping that demon, you weren't, I mean, it was a trick, right? You never considered actually making that deal, right?" And then Dean refuses to answer and he just changes it over from like this blues music to his normal kind of like rock sound. And Sam flinches. And that's where the episode ends. But then we get this after, like this dramatic preview trailer.
Yeah. Which we've never had before.
Never.
Also, I just want to point out, Dean totally did consider making that deal.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, this the soon bit is that it's like a teaser for the next episode, isn't it? At the end.
Yeah. It's
But
like a
I have to
super
say,
dramatic preview.
yeah, we haven't had that before. But I was like, oh, this episode looks good, so I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also put at the end, oh, do we find out what John told Dean about Sam next episode? Because we see Dean
Yes.
telling Sam that John told him, and
Yep.
then also it looks kind of action packed. It looks quite good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited because it's a two-parter. And from
Oh, that's going to be
memory.
annoying for me having to wait
Well, no. No, hear
in
me out.
between.
It's basically one long episode. So in my opinion, you could totally watch one and then the other. Because it's
But
just
without waiting
two.
to record in the middle.
Yeah. You'll have notes. It'll be fun.
But there won't. But surely there'll be spoilers at the end of the second part that I don't want to know when we record the first part.
That is a small problem.
That's the problem with, I always want to I'm always like, can I just watch the next one? And I'm like, no, I probably shouldn't, because I don't want to accidentally spoil it myself and then, spoiler it on the podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Should we do the games?
Yes.
Yes.
I villain hot or not, I don't know who actually is the villain, so there's too many.
I write down the Demon Barbies. Demon Barbies, they're all hot villains. Yes, check, tick. Motel, I wrote meh. You didn't even notice there was a motel.
I haven't got anything at all for the motel.
That's like double meh. The scare rating, I wrote that it was a 4.5 to a 5, and that was purely because the jump scares were so good, because it's like there's so much silliness. But the jump scares are amazing, and it's kind of tragic, because if it had lived up to how scary the jump scares are, it would have been amazing.
I gave it a 6, but I put mostly for the zombie demon faces and the description of John in hell.
Pretty much the same rating then. The MVP, I just wrote down Dean, I guess, because he was such an idiot in this episode. I was so annoyed at him the whole episode. Like, usually I love him so much, I was just like, shut up, Dean. All episodes, so I was like, Dean, I guess.
I love Dean as well.
Yeah. My thirst trap was when Dean kicks down the door.
I've got one for each. I don't know which one to go for. Okay, runner up. Dean looking like a sad puppy dog, and the best one was Sam holding the door closed when they're in that closet thing, and the dog's trying to break in.
Sam being a human shield. Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Checks out. Yeah. Valid.
Favorite quote?
I have two, because in case you pick the same one, because you always do that. So I've started doing it too now. So my first choice is probably the Dillinger banter, because that's so funny. And then my second choice is, you think you could throw in a set of steak knives?
Well, I had two as well, and I didn't have either of those ones.
Oh.
I usually like to be warned before I'm violated with demon tongue. And I think I'm going to go with, you innocent, harmless young man, you.
Oh God, that part is so funny. That's a really good one. That's a really, really good choice. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with steak knives. I think I'm going to go with steak knives. But those scenes were so funny. I think I'm really, really, I don't remember it entirely, but I remember it being really exciting and really action-packed. So I'm really excited now for the 2-parter that's coming up next. And I'm excited that they put it in there so that we can be like, oh, teaser trailer. That's fun.
Do they do that again? That's the first time they've done it? They do it a few times.
Yeah, I think that they do it. I think that they do it from time to time. I can't remember if it becomes part of the outro after this point. I don't think it's something that they always do. Like, I don't think we always get a preview. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But
I feel like it would be annoying to have it sometime, every time.
Yeah. You'd have to be so careful to not spoiler stuff. Like, to make your audience excited but not give everything away. It's kind of like the thing about trailers now, is where they just give you the entire thing and then you watch it. And the exciting parts are not exciting anymore, because they've given everything away.
Yeah.
But this set of episodes, I'm thrilled. I'm really excited for next week. I think it will be so fun to talk about.
I'm looking forward to it. So it's some sort of virus, isn't it? That's all I got from the trailer bit, really.
A demon virus.
Not a demon
Could be
virus.
Anyone at all. Yep.
Ugh.
It's going to be dark and crazy. Yeah.
I think that's it then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. We would be very grateful. And if you know someone who would enjoy it, please share.
You can find us on Instagram at The Witches of Letters Podcast, or you can email us at thewitchesofletters@gmail.com.
Until next time, stay safe out there, have each other's backs, and always keep fighting.